Posicionamiento económico internacional de Japón.
A cualquier país que uno vaya, siempre encontrará productos con la etiqueta hecho en Japón. Durante décadas, esa ha sido garantía de alta calidad. Pero, ¿cómo ha llegado Japón a ser una potencia económica, siendo una pequeña nación insular oriental de escasos recursos? ¿Cómo emergió Japón de las cenizas tras el fin de la Segunda Guerra Mundial para alcanzar una recuperación milagrosa y décadas de acelerado desarrollo? El milagro económico de Japón se basó en múltiples factores, como la producción en serie, el consumo masivo y la original gestión empresarial al estilo japonés.
Tras el final de la Segunda Guerra Mundial, Japón entró en un periodo de crecimiento económico constante llamado el milagro japonés, que le permitió escalar puestos a nivel internacional hasta consolidarse como la segunda potencia del planeta en términos de PIB. Si bien este crecimiento se volvió más moderado con la llegada del siglo XXI, Japón sigue representando hoy en día una anomalía socioeconómica en la región asiática, en la que mantiene claro el liderazgo a nivel económico, renta per cápita, social y cultural. La crisis del Japón.
At the end of 2012, Japan's central government was 997 trillion yen in debt. In order to understand why, let's look at how the government accumulates debt in the first place. Each year, the government receives money from households and corporations in the form of taxes and other revenues. It then spends that money in the economy on public services and other commitments. If the government wants to spend more money than its revenues, it has to borrow the difference. It does this by issuing debt securities, IOUs. Investors buy them, the government gets the money it needs, and investors receive interest. But when the outstanding debt gets too large, investors start to worry that they won't get their money back. This is where the central bank comes in. The central bank lowers interest rates, which basically means that it prints money until interest rates hit its target. Satisfied that their investments are safe, investors keep buying government IOUs, which means that the government gets to keep spending more than it earns. Sounds great, right? Well, there's a catch. Over time, continual interest rate suppression and money printing sets up an inescapable trap. So here's where Japan fits into this framework. At the end of the 2012 fiscal year, Japan's debt was 23 times revenues. So it all comes down to this. Can the government keep its debt cost from rising to 4%? Well, in order to answer this question, it's important to distinguish between Japanese investors and foreign investors. Let's start with Japanese investors. The last 20 years have been very challenging for them, since almost all prices have been going down. The exception has been government bonds. So as you can imagine, a large part of local investable funds are already invested in them. This means that new investable funds would have to buy the government's new bonds. Since investors represent households and corporations, these new funds would have to come from their new savings. The problem is that new savings are declining. The population is aging, so households are more likely to draw down upon savings than create them. And the balance of trade is deteriorating, making it difficult for corporations to generate profits. Basically, the new savings of households and corporations are less than what the government needs to borrow. So the only option is for foreign investors to get involved. But they're used to receiving higher rates of return. So as external investors fund more and more of the government's deficit, the average debt cost may well rise to the critical level of 4%. But it gets worse. The Bank of Japan recently started targeting 2% inflation. The problem with this is that Japanese investors had come to view falling consumer prices, deflation, as real return. So when consumer prices fell by 1% per year and they got a nominal yield of 1%, they called it a 2% real yield. But the Bank of Japan's new policy is going to flip the polarity of this calculation. So even to get back to where they were, investors will have to charge the government a nominal rate of 4%. Combine this with Japan's increasing reliance on external capital, and you can see just how easily the average debt cost could breach the critical level of 4%. And once that happens, it's game over.